You've got a great idea for a business and you're out there, you know that it has value and you think, okay, it's time to raise funds. What do you do? Because you've read over and over again these amazing companies who have raised $1 million before they've even gotten started. They've raised $10 million and now they're going global. I mean, it can be really, really daunting with how on earth do I do this? I mean, did these people strike it rich? Did they literally just know someone and they literally heard their idea and gave them money? I mean, all of these ideas and thoughts and options go through someone's head when they're in the stage that you're at, where you're thinking, okay, I think I've got a really good idea here, but what do I do next? I'm Ariya Chittasy from Engenesis, and we have experienced a lot of different people trying to build their companies and going through every different pathway in the book. And in fact, I've actually gone through the whole thing myself as well. I know what it's like to have an idea that you really love, you put your heart into it, you put in millions of dollars actually into the venture. And I also know what it's like to do that, but hit the wall and have to close the doors and have people come and lock the doors to your office saying that your employees can't go there anymore. The fact is that raising money for your business does not mean your business will succeed. When you first see people in the lights, right, on the media, on YouTube, having successfully raised a fundraising round, it sounds amazing, right? It sounds like, wow, that person raised $1 million, $5 million, whatever it is. And this whole image goes on in your head like they just struck it lucky or they've won the lotto. The reality of the situation is completely opposite. You see, when you raise funds, that's simply a commitment to your investors. They are giving you that $1 million and they are expecting you to turn that into $3 million, $5 million, $10 million in 2, 3, or 4 years. So the day after you secure those funds, well, there's a huge burden on your shoulders, right? You better now deliver. Otherwise, what are you going to do? Are you going to walk back to them and say, hey, I really tried my best, but unfortunately, I've got nothing to show? In actual fact, we had one company come to us from Brisbane here in Australia, and they were asking us for about $1 million in seed funding. And they seemed to be relatively decent people. We talked to them. They sounded really great about what they do. And it came to about the third meeting with them. They flew down to see us in our headquarters in Sydney. And as we went through the conversation and started doing our due diligence, we then asked them the question, well, all of your business concepts, your business model sounds great. You know, you have a very clear vision for what you're doing. But hold on a second, you know, how many shares would we get in this business and how much is this business valued at? And what came out of his mouth just completely shocked us. What he said is, well, we've actually raised funds already. 13 investors have come on board. Now, at that point, we thought, wow, that is really exciting. I mean, if 13 other people are interested in, helping you build this venture, that's really exciting. You must have done a good job. But then he said, and we've raised previously $1.4 million from them. Now, this is where things completely changed tone. You see, we were under the impression that they were raising funds for the first time. And we were thinking, wow, they've got this big, bold vision. Yeah, they don't have revenue yet, but they've built a pretty good, working model. And it looked like their future was quite hopeful. Until we realized that they were in a cycle of what we call chronic fundraising. Yeah, they just kept on raising funds to raise funds to raise funds. You might think you have to have money to make money, but the fact of the matter is, if you can't make money without having money, then how can you expect to have an investor come in, tip money into your business and turn it into something more? You see, when you go through the whole investment process, and you can see, in fact, we interviewed Alex Solo from Sprint Law on Engenesis.io. And he talks about how he spent about 2 years building a relationship with the investors before they tipped money. He raised over $1 million into his technology law business. And this is one thing that you're probably not thinking about, right? You need to build trust with someone who's going to invest in you. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been approached by a friend of yours to just lend them $100? right? And you have that little moment where you think, hold on a second, should I lend that money to that person? Well, what goes through your head? You think, are they reliable? Are they really going to bring back that money to me? Are they going to waste it on something silly? Well, an investor is in exactly the same position as you are then, only they're talking about larger sums of money, right? So they're asking the question, is this founder, is this person a real business leader who is dedicated to turning my money into some huge business value that makes a difference? And if you can't answer that question, then should you really be going and asking money from that investor? So being resourceful means that, number one, are you really committed to creating and adding that value? Or are you just trying to receive those investor funds and you think that's the win? There's one documentary that I would really invite you to go and see. It's all around the Fire Festival. And it tells the story about this group of people who went and raised all of these funds for this extraordinary festival and this whole music platform. And the documentary goes through how at every single stage, the venture looked far better than it really did. Now, why do I share this story? Because a lot of the time, people in your position, when they think they have a fantastic idea, they're ready and they're committing to make it a real business, they think, okay, I need to go out and convince an investor to put funds into my business. And if that was the whole picture, then there shouldn't be these types of fire festivals out there who can raise all of these funds and then that money completely goes to waste. I mean, you know, it then shows in that documentary the investors trying to get their money back or trying to ask what's going on, and it's just lie after lie after lie. So I know that, you know, that's not why you're watching this video. That's not something that you are looking to do, is go out, raise all these funds with no grounding, with no substance. So what is the alternative? The alternative is what we call venture building. Yeah, focusing on venture building, not just venture capital. You shouldn't go in just trying to raise money for the sake of it. You should go in looking at, how do I add value? Yeah, how do I add value? Now, add value to who? Number one, you should be adding value to your customers, right? In the end of the day, your business, your service, it solves people's problems. And if you don't have that heart into it, you know, your customers are going to see that, but also it's not going to be as enjoyable. The whole journey is not going to be very enjoyable. And that's a huge part of it. But the other one is to your investors, right? Anyone who invests $1 with you, they want to get $3 return, $5 return, $10 return. So you want to start off by having a mindset and focus on, how can I be a venture builder, right? Not just looking to raise capital. The second thing is you should look into what entrepreneurship really means. We take the quote from Jean-Baptiste. He's an economist, French philosopher back in the 1800s, and he says that the entrepreneur takes resources from places of low yield and productivity and moves them into areas of higher yield and productivity, right? So this is the type of mindset that you should be having. You should be thinking, how can I take this money? How can I take these ideas? How can I take my connections and turn it into something that has high yield and high productivity, that comes back to pay you, comes back to pay your investors, comes back to make a real difference to your customers. Now, if you go through these steps like I just shared with you, instead of going into this whole process like, okay, I just need to raise funds and I'm sitting there just hoping funds come into my bank account. If you go in thinking, hey, no matter whether funds come or not, I am here to build a business. I am here to put my energy into building value, solving questions for my customers, solving problems for them. And if an investor came in, we would not only get there faster, but we would be able to serve far more numbers of people. Now, if you do that, this is the funny thing that we've seen happen over and over again in the hundreds of businesses that we've worked with. If you get to that place where you realize that you can lean on your human capital, your energy, your commitment, your leadership, your dedication, and you can solve problems in the economy, right? Well, you'll have this air of confidence about you that you don't need to raise funds. And those are the most investor attractive opportunities that exist out there, right? When you can sit in front of an investor and show them, hey, we are on this journey. We know we are adding value to society, to the community, And now, you, Mr. or Mrs. Investor, if you come and partner us, we can simply do that to a lot more people in a lot shorter amount of time. Well, that funnily enough is when investors love it and they line up to be part of the venture. Now, let me share with you what it comes down to in terms of the data. You see, data researched by Fundable states that 0.96% of you will be the ones who raise external funding. Now, when I say external funding in this case, I mean angel investors or VC. The other percentage is made up of 95% of you raising money from your family, friends, or your personal bank account, and 2.5% of you from traditional banks and lending and things like credit cards. Now, what should we make of this? Number one, if you're going to go into your whole business venture just relying on that under 1% chance that you're going to get external fundraising, well, I'd say, why would you even begin this journey, right? You want to go in giving yourself the best chance and having multiple options, yeah? It's going to be a non-negotiable that you get your business off the ground, yeah? However, you don't want to limit yourself to only having external investment being the thing that is going to make you make it or break it. Now, if you are that fortunate one to be in that 1%, now, when I say fortunate, I believe you would have earned it, yeah? But if you're in that, unfortunately, it's still not paradise, right? 75% of you, 3 out of 4, are going to return nothing back to your investors. So what does this mean? It means, like I said at the beginning, you need to focus on venture building, on what does it take to take all of these different ingredients and turn it into an extraordinary outcome, yeah? To turn it into the business, to bake this business that you want to see in the world. So if you're in that position, I would say get really clear the value you are here to provide, make a real commitment to yourself, and then go and do the things to build value in your company day in and day out. Now, a final PS, there's actually another 2% of people who don't fundraise money at all. Now, admittedly, a lot of these companies you'll never hear about, yeah? However, this is one that we have a track record of doing in Engenesis, which is companies that never raise any money, not from their own bank accounts, not from other people's bank accounts, but they generate extraordinary amounts of value in the world. So that's just my extra 2 cents. Have a think about that. What would it take to be one of these companies, which we call users invisible investors, to make a huge difference in society and get your idea out there? So I really acknowledge you for coming this far. You wouldn't have listened to this whole thing if you were a person who was not willing to do what it takes to get their business off the ground. I really acknowledge you for doing that. So if you're ready to get your idea out into the world, well, switch off this video, start obsessing all about how do I add value to my customers? How do I add value to my investors? And I hope to hear about your story one day.